Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
I could be learning, you could be yearning to see what's behind these closed doors. But I promise you, baby, I'll always be
Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome. We are live inside the lab. This is our weekly live show here on the channel. We do it every Saturday for the uninitiated. First and foremost, let me get out the way. I probably couldn't have picked a better time to go live right now, given some breaking news here in the States, but oh well, we're here and we're here to talk tech anyway, as well as today's topic or theme is PCs or next generation consoles, right? And which one that provides the better experience. Now, normally I talk about this in videos and some of our VODs when we're doing builds, and the mantra still states as it is that, well, PCs have character, consoles have a purpose, excuse me, or however way you want to switch that around. But for the most part, PCs do have their purpose. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S launch coming up. If you're here on the replay, if you're watching on the replay, I do appreciate that. Let me know down in the comments if you are. Let me jump over to the chat because I see we had a few friends pop up here early. Some of our show regulars. What's up, fellas? We got Tiger Nation, who is my oldest son, in the chat. What's happening, Zion? And then Mr. Zombified, is good to see you too, as always. Then QV, what's up, Q? It's good to see you. Yeah, man. Sparta Rules, 1993. What's up, brother? He says, and I say back to you, what's happening? What's up, fam? Lab fam. Got a couple regulars in the house. That's awesome. I tell you what, do me a favor and if you can, share the link out, share the tweet this out or share it on your Facebook timeline. Let's get some more friends here in this community. Speaking of, since we jumped back from the chat, I just want to jump in and do a little bit of housekeeping, or house cleaning is what we like to do, because the channel is still growing or reaching getting daily views and daily subscribers. The live show here has really done well for the channel and the community in terms of like reach and just growth overall, and just getting the message out and just connecting with like-minded PC tech enthusiasts and just like-minded gamers in general. But let me jump over here to our window here and start off with our mailing list. start the housekeeping session up or house cleaning session with our mailing list. It's free to join, right? I promise not to hit you with any spam or annoying email notifications, what have you. Our email list is growing, and I would like to give a shout out to those who have signed up already. I know you haven't seen any updates from me yet, but they are coming. So yeah, sign up for our email list. YouTube notifications are great, but they have much to be desired. So, having our community brought together on our email list allows me to communicate with you directly in a more, in a more formal way, in a more personal way. So you could check that link out down in the description, and all it requires is your email and your first name, so I know how to address you. Right, and then jumping over to our website, right? This is the InsideTheLab.net. This is our official hub or our official website. As you can see here, we do have a blog where I will be posting more helpful content and more tips, along with more lab news or just uh, more of a future content outlook going along here in 20 or moving along into the 2021, which I'm pretty sure everybody can suffice it to say is looking forward to 2021, right? But check out the website, right? It's an extension of the content. You can also contact me directly, or check out the full videography, and to find me on social media. There goes my mug. But yeah, so check out the website. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, is the official merch store. And again, I am adding more details, or I'm adding more merch to the official Inside the Lab store. So just check back periodically, even if you're not right, if not quite ready to commit to, rocking some Inside the Lab merch. Maybe you'll come across a design that will fit your style, right, and will appeal to you. But check out the official merch store. Right, look good playing, feel good gaming. I have one of the mugs right here, the same mug as you can see right here. Right, you lift me up. Ladies and gents, you lift me up. Being here on Saturday, doing our Saturday live streams is one of my favorite things to do. But check out the Inside the Lab merch store. Totally good stuff. Hoodies, tri bins, mugs, different kinds of hardware. And pretty soon here we're going to be adding digital content. So yeah. Again, so here we are on this beautiful Saturday. It is actually quite nice where I'm at. I like to give a little bit of regional updates before we jump into the live show. I'm here for the uninitiated, or if you're watching on a live stream, I'm here in the United States of America on the East Coast of Maryland. It's actually really nice outside. I mean, the last live stream we had rain, but today it's all sunshine, and it's just this is outside weather. When I was younger, we shot basketball, played hoops. This is the type of weather we desired, especially if you wanted to play early in the morning when it's just much cooler versus playing in the afternoon. But it's beautiful out here. Tell me, where are you watching from? For those of you who I don't, for I know some of our friends here in the chat, or some of you are watching, are located all over the globe, and some of you, like Thunder, I know where you're located in Tiger Nation. But for some, for all of our other members on the audience, tell me where you're watching from, and tell me how your week went. We are going to transition right into it as more and more people join us. And for those of you who are joining us, we are talking about PCs versus consoles, right? Especially more specifically, next generation consoles, because the PS5 and the Xbox Series X has some amazing value in terms of their spec sheet on paper anyway. So in this live stream, in this YouTube live stream, we're going to be talking about console or gaming PC and which one provides the better gaming experience in terms of cost, both long term and short term, because they both have their pros and cons, to which we are going to talk about. Some of them are, with the upcoming generation of next generation consoles, the PS5 and Xbox Series X, is a huge step in terms of hardware, and we haven't gotten. I mean, and I'm coming from myself. I own just about every PlayStation console, all the way up to the PlayStation 1, and then some of the consoles prior to that. Even when PC gaming wasn't as popular then as it is now, or I guess you could say more mainstream. I see we have. Yeah, Sparta Rule says that they are in Stockton, California. So all right, a little bit of West Coast, a little bit of Cali love. Cool. And Chris Guff is in the house. He says hi all. What's happening, Chris? Tricion, it's good to see you, Ivan. What's up, brother? Glad you made it on the live stream. Let me know if here recently or upcoming up here too. I'm gonna be doing some more VODs, so let me know if you're getting those notifications. Tricion, but it's good to see you. And Tricion says the weather has sucked for the past 3 months, just rainy and gray weather. I know it's not for everybody, but that is the weather that I like. Rainy and gray. I know it's not for everybody, but give me those kind of days 5 out of the 7 days a week, right? Even if I have to go out, really don't care. But I take rainy, grainy. That's like rain and gray combined, but I like gray weather and I like rain too. But I can dig it. Q says I'm starting to move my stuff to Germany, watching this via my laptop. Awesome. Okay. Cool. Hey, make sure you lift with your knees, right, Q, and take your time and take your time. But that's awesome. That's right. You're advancing your studies, right? And we all wish you best of luck with that. So yeah, all awesome stuff. And please, by all means, if you're willing, you are certainly welcome. Share how your week has gone as we are progressing through this live stream. For those of you who don't know the way this show works, pop down in the chat. I love sharing and reading your comments and telling me, any problems or issues you might have had during the week, even if it's not about tech. I'm also a parent, so hopefully I can help, provide you with advice where applicable. So, but yeah, so jumping into it because more and more consoles are beginning to pop up in the wild, right? Early reviewers and early testers are you know, starting to publish their blogs and some of their early review and some of their experiences with these consoles. Most notably, the storage gate, if you will, or the fact that the consoles you only have up to about 365 gigabytes of storage, right? Which is a big deal because games are becoming larger and larger in file size. So this tells me that they more so, between Microsoft and Sony, they more so expect you to just have a high turnover of games instead of like stacking your library for a rainy day, as Triceon was mentioning, right? Like if you had a large hard drive, a large hard drive in your console, which on a side note you can plug up a USB, although you won't get the same lightning fast load times, right? Excuse me, and loading screens or shortened loading screens, you just won't get that. There'll be a slight delay. So that is something to consider. So what these console manufacturers are doing is they're forcing gamers to limit their library due to these storage limitations. But I was reading an article earlier that Sony will open it up for you to expand on the console storage and will support select and M.2 and NVMe. So 2BT, right, or 2BT. Triceon says my notifications on YouTube are just messed up on my account, so I have only been getting notifications of planned streams and premieres. All right, cool. Yeah, man, that's something we'll definitely continue to investigate, especially here as we do more live streams and be on the lookout for pop-up live streams, which will do community giveaways, right? Steam, maybe some Steam gift cards or what have you. Bad Habit says, "What's up, homies? What's going on, Bad Habit? It's good to see you. Bad Habit is another live show regular. I don't think you were with us last week. I can't remember, but it's good to see you now, definitely." And Triceon says, "Yeah, the increasing file size sucks. It definitely does. I mean, it's something even PC gamers. It's something we experience too. It's just that our storage is normally easier to expand versus they are with consoles because with consoles they're a little bit more proprietary." I am Mr. Cheeks. Hey, I think that's my bro Cheeks. What's good, fam? What's happening, man? It's good to see you on the live stream, Cheeks. And Bad Habit says, man, with all the free games that I've downloaded from Epic, I need a Super HD. Bad Habit, I ran into that same problem with one of the test systems I have, in the lower portion of the lab where I use to benchmark different hardware. I took advantage of Epic's free games, especially ones that had synthetic benchmarks. Right, that's how I got GT. Although I already had a copy of GTA 5, but that's how I was able to get GTA 5 on Epic, which it launches really wonky for some reason. That's still just very much loaded from Steam, but um, yeah, it's with so many options or all those free games. It's like you want to go ahead and claim them, but now I just go ahead and just purchase them. As you know, Epic likes to walk you through the cart. Although the game is free, they still treat it like a normal transaction. So normally I'll just do that and just leave the game in my library. But it is a pain in the butt though trying to install it back and forth because again, they're still very much large file sizes. And games like Call of Duty and Fortnite here recently taking over 100 gigabytes. It's like consoles won't have a lot of space to work with, and I don't have it in front of me, but I like to imagine Cyberpunk 2077 is going to have a high, you know, a high storage requirement, so at least 100 gigabytes, right? Just given on how detailed and rich and immersive the world's going to be, so many different textures and models, character files to load, audio, all those things. Sparta Rules 1993. I gotta say, I'm a 90s, 80s baby when I say 1990. 1993 says my week was alright. I started my new job as a security guard. It was pretty boring until yesterday. I stopped two thefts from happening. That's also. Let me give you guys a little bit of an insight because hearing that at Sparta Rules, which congratulations on the new job, right? That's something very important. It's very important that you find your place here in the world as productive people, and finding jobs are hard to come by. But congratulations on that. But back in the day, I worked for a local Kmart in Delaware, and I was loss prevention. I was I was undercover store detective or what have you, and that's what we used to do. And I did it part time, and it was probably one of my most favorite jobs I've ever had. Right, minus content creation. It's one of my most favorite jobs I've ever had or worked for. And I just remember just dressing down in like sports clothes. I had a jersey and do rag on, and we would just catch people, stealing infamil and sneakers and clothes and just so many stories. But when it kind of was a duality with me. Like I felt bad when we stopped the people from stealing food and shoes, but it's just you just can't steal. What can you say? But that's awesome, man. Be safe. Triceon says, yeah, man, I thought 300 gigabytes HDD was a lot. Then I thought a single 1 terabyte mechanical drive was overkill. But now 2 terabytes of my 2.5 terabyte of space is being used. And and so yeah, and I'm in the same boat because I have a large size NVMe M.2 on my editing rig here, right? And then I have a normal excuse me, oh, excuse me. Then I have a normal SSD on top of that, and they're both just about full. And while I don't play a lot of games, I do have some of those large file games down or installed that we were talking about, uh, like Fortnite, Call of Duty War or Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Warzone, and here soon definitely Cyberpunk 2077, so long as that it launches when it's supposed to. But fingers crossed here with that. But yeah, games are becoming larger and larger in size, right? It's getting crazy. Tracion says also, well, Fortnite reduced its game size from around 86 gigabytes to 27 gigabytes, so that's very nice. Right, absolutely. Change is always welcome, and so good for Epic on doing that. Hopefully some of these other developers will catch on to that, especially with these new consoles. Especially with these new consoles. And Tiger Nation says, I just sent my application for Dix, and now I'm just waiting for a call back. Awesome. All right, kid. Well, best of luck. All is well. This is a good market to be in. Although I did say jobs are a little hard to be by, but this is a good market to be in because if you want to get if you want to get your foot wet in the job scene, in the job market, you have a lot of different options to choose from. But jumping back to the purpose of this live stream, and again, that's PCs versus gaming consoles, the pros and cons to gaming on either of the two platforms. Now, the biggest kicker I would have to say is that it appeared that consoles are, or the industry is on the verge of adopting 1440p, right? It's 2560 by 1440p, with the Xbox Series having full support. Now, the tricky thing is the PS5 will not support native 2560 by 1440p, but it will support 4K, 60 hertz, and 120 hertz. So that'll be interesting to see how well it performs in terms of like response time and how much of a delay, how much of input delay we will see with the consoles. But they are running HDMI 2.1, so that's good too. That means the HDMI will be able to support 4K at high refresh rates. But it looks like 4K is becoming the the standard for gaming, especially with these higher, with consoles now supporting higher end specs. Which I tell you what, let's jump right into it, right? Let's jump right into it and bring up the Xbox X and Xbox Series S specifications, because what's interesting to note here is that if you did know this, please share in the chat. How do you think what do you think, how do you think these consoles will perform versus their paper stats? Now this is from Tweaktown, but the specs are all available on the web. And what's most interesting is that Zen 2 CPU, right? Zen 2, uh, that's 27. Like I would imagine that's the 2700X. Excuse me, more than likely the 2700X. So Zen 2 is the 2000 series or 3000 series. I'm sorry. Zen Plus is 2000 series. I stand corrected. So many numbers. Bad Habit says consoles exclusive PC, consoles exclusive PC, everything else. Yeah, I mean absolutely. And we're going to talk about exclusives a little bit more in the live stream. Bad Habit says I will get me a PS5 this year though. I skipped the PS4, but I'm PC for life. And actually, ironically, I'm a little backwards because I had a PS4, and I quite naturally I'm going to skip the PS5. There's just not enough exclusives, Sony exclusives for me to want to play. And the last Sony exclusive that I really had looked forward to was the Order 1866 or 1666. And that game was sort of a letdown. Like it looked good graphic wise, but there wasn't really anything on the PlayStation 4 that had me like, wow, I really got to buy a console, even with the Spider-Man games. But the thing with exclusives, which I find the most interesting, and I'm really hoping that this is something Sony will adopt. And that's a subscription model or launcher similar to what Microsoft offers, right? And that's the Xbox Game Pass I'm referring to, which allows you to pay a monthly subscription and you can download, Microsoft exclusives anytime you want. And I use it myself to play games like Gears and Forza, just to name a few. And Microsoft is continually adding games to the library, especially with their recent acquisition of Bethesda. That tells me we're going to see, some Bethesda titles roll over, which I already seen Fallout 76 has made its way there, which I'm a little salty about that, right? Let me switch back here because I'm a little salty about that because I paid full price for Fallout 76 just to have it appear on the Xbox Game Pass. Tiger Nation says, "Yeah, I feel that, but I see the Xbox has better graphics but no games." Well, the Xbox exclusives are a little bit, could be a little, one could say it's a little bit dry, but you can't ignore the significance of Halo, right? Like we just can't ignore the significance of Halo and the popularity of Halo because with Halo Infinite, I know Microsoft, 343 got a lot of backlash from the early teasings or the early showings of Halo, and while it looked like the same old pizza with different toppings, like it looked like it needed some work or it was very much still in early stages of development. So, but when you look at games like Halo, and rather they'll introduce a Halo Battle Royale or say, a robust Halo multiplayer remains to be seen. But if they make that available on Xbox Game Pass, a lot of gamers are going to consider that. To me, I see it as an affordable option versus paying $60 for games, which I saw some PS5 games will cost $69. RTX On says, "Word up, what's happening?" RTX On, is good to see you. Always enjoy fellowshipping with you and talking to you on our weekly vlogs, which I'm unsure which Monday vlog's gonna be. Right, it's really to be D. So be on the lookout for Monday's vlog. We got a lot to talk about because Nvidia is on the cusp of doing whatever with the RTX 3060 Ti, and their response to the RX 6000 series, which we have yet to see a response to the RX 6000 series, and the Ryzen 5000 series are all out of stock and out of whack. Which I tweeted about this a couple of days ago because I wanted to get my hands on a Ryzen 5000 series, and I was like, you know what? They are just out of stock everywhere in my area, unless you go the way of scalpers. And come on, for real, let's keep it 100. We shouldn't really be supporting the scalper tradition and their behaviors right now. So it is what it is. We'll have to see what happens when stock normalizes and we're able to order these CPUs, or I can walk into a micro center and get them. But I am monitoring the availability of them. I have settled on the motherboard I'm going to use for the mini ITX build or the mini ITX series that we have coming up, where we're going to test the RX 6000 series GPUs as soon as I get my physical little hands on one against some of the RTX 20 series cards I have. And speaking of skipping, I'm likely going to skip over the RTX 30 series more than likely, especially with a refresh in the wind for early 2021. 3080 Ti's and 3070 Supers. Tricion says my cousin has played on the Xbox Series S. He said it was very good, but didn't give me specifics. Okay. Yeah, well, context is key, but good is a good start, right? For what the Xbox Series S is offering, and in terms of price is let me keep it 100. It's really tough to compare it to a PC or build a PC on an equivalent level because the Xbox Series X is what Microsoft is toting their 1440p 60 hertz like entry level 1440p gaming at $299. That's on a PC, that would be really, really tricky to achieve, as you would most likely want a dedicated graphics card at that resolution. And these consoles do have those RDNA 2 GPU, GPU architecture in them. And let's jump back here and let's take a look at the two consoles head to head. Right? If you take a look at the slide on the screen right now, the PS5 and Xbox Series X side by side, essentially consoles are custom computers in the same generic case. They're just cut down versions of computers, if you will. Just like cell phones are cut down versions of a computer. Your cell phone, right? Your cell phone has which I have a Vegeta background. That's pretty dope, right? Right. But cell phones are miniature computers. Especially here recently, modern cell phones or some of the newer cell phones have dedicated graphics cards in them. But they are essentially smaller versions of computers. Hence why some phones cost $1,000. Which, if you build a $1,000 gaming PC, you get a well capable machine. Even if you cut down, or even if you took that $1,000 budget and included your monitor, so if you built like a $700 1440p gaming PC and then bought like a 1440p gaming monitor and paired it with that, you get a great experience versus $1,000 for an iPhone 12 Pro Max or what have you. So, but it's good to have decisions. Let me jump back over here on the chat because Tricion adds it doesn't know how he got to use it, but he has like 4 dev kits, so he got some context. That's awesome, man. Yeah, he must got some. He must know some people in some places, but that's what's up. That's what's up. Tell him to share some more details. I mean, I know we're right around the corner of launch, early. But I'm sure when the embargo will probably be somewhere between the 11th and the 4th, or the 9th and the 12th or something like that. But more context on how just the overall new console experience is. What's the menu like? What is the quality? How does the quality of the controller feel and the quality of the console? Is it really a little miniature toaster oven, which was some of the initial reports coming out about the Xbox Series X, where early testers were getting their hands on them and they were saying I was just generating a lot of heat. And Sparta of Rules 1993 says, I'm considering after I build my gaming PC, I might buy Xbox Series S or the X just to play exclusives and friends that play on PC. And, I totally resonate and respect that. I know that's one of the key sticking points when I'm talking to some of my console gaming friends, or I'm, just talking and engaging with some of you in the community, and we're talking about making a switch from console to PC gaming, fully. And well, most of them tell you, well, hey, lad, most of my friends still play, um, excuse me, on console, so I like to stay there so that way I can still network and run with some of my online mates that I trust because I'm that same way. I much rather play online games with some of the friends or people I know. So yeah, I can totally respect that because again, you can play Microsoft exclusives on the PC, which interestingly enough, some might have thought that the Xbox Series X would become a persona non grata with the full adaptation of the Xbox Game Pass, because you would be able to play all these games on the PC. But like Sparta Rule says that but I still have friends though I want to network and play with, and they don't want to make the leap over the consoles, and that's okay, right? That's okay. That's okay. That's kind of to be expected. And most of the time when I'm talking to my friends about that subject, I really push the narrative that I'm not here to force PC gaming on you. I'm just simply here to tell you that, given that you're willing to take in that initial cost of building a PC, it is totally the more well-rounded gaming experience. And let's elaborate on that more. But let me jump back over to the chat because the Mr. Zombie or RTX On says, where the hell does a 3080 Ti fit? You can overclock a 3080 pretty darn close to a 3090, so just more VRAM and a clock bump. Absolutely, the more VRAM and CUDA cores is the key there with the 3080 Ti, and I think that leveraging lowering the clock speed is something NVIDIA is going to leverage in terms of being able to fit more cores onto the inside of the GPU die, and absolutely more VRAM. I mean, come on, the RX 60. Let's go with the 6800 XT with this 16 gigabyte VRAM buffer. That's 6 gigabytes more than the RTX 3080, right? And early benchmarks show that the 6800 is like right there in some games faster than the 3080. But I really do believe that Nvidia is planning a TI variant with an upgraded VRAM versus their all previous other generations, like they normally have upgraded the VRAM amounts, like from the 980 Ti to the 1080 Ti. And so I'm from even from the early reports, rumors I've been reading, we could either see a 20 gigabyte Ti variant, or more so what I believe it would be a 16 gigabyte Ti variant to go directly head to head with the 6800. Christoph said, and the Mrs. Zombify says, my Series X is on the way. All right, awesome. That's dope, man. The Series S or Series X, I'm sorry, the Series X still in insane value. And let me jump back here to our image scene so you can take a look at the specs while we're running through the chat here. Because Chris says, I'm waiting for my R5 3600 with the excited sideways potato french fry face. I love using that emoji. So if I'm talking to you in the chat, you see me use it, best believe I'm hype because I like using that. I like using that in chat, or I like using that in the comment section. But Chris says, waiting for my R5 5600X. That is an amazing CPU. Yes. Awesome. I'm glad you picked one up. I'm glad you picked one up. Chris says it's going to be in my hands on Monday or Tuesday with Patriot 16 gigabyte, CL17, 3733 megahertz, Viper still memory. I will do some testing. I can share my results if you want. Absolutely. Like some, I know we have some other friends here in the chat or here in the community, here on our YouTube community that follow me on Twitter. And a little shameless plug, but you can follow me on Twitter at Inside the Lab YT, right? And you can always network with me there. I'm almost always active, right? That's at Inside the Lab YT. You can actually find the name down in the basement below. That is the description box. But certainly, Chris, I would love to take a look at them. Please do share the results you find. Mention me on Twitter or even send me a DM, and we'll retweet and we'll share them with everybody here in the community. We maybe even talk about it on next week's live stream. Which, on a side note, this is the 10th live stream, and that's something I feel like is an accomplishment for me because I wanted to do a 10 live stream show run, and that's something I said I want to stick to it, and just getting to 10 is a huge accomplishment and something that just excites me because this show is going to continue to evolve. I have so much planned for the next 10 live streams, from surprise guests and doing live builds and live overclocking and live tutorials and just overall upgrading the set from lighting to audio. So 2021 is going to be an amazing, amazing year. If you're not yet, I welcome you to not only like this video, but definitely subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, this live stream, I will be able to earn your subscription, and hopefully, I'm entertaining or educating enough that will inspire you to join our community and, you know, network and continue to fellowship with us. So, yeah, hit the red button for us, subscribe, and if you haven't yet, do be sure to hit the notification bell because that's going to help you get, all of my posts, which also you have to opt in to receive community tab posts as well. So, keep a lookout for the community tabs. I like giving you some updates in between production and in between filming, and it helps me stay connected with the audience, even though no videos are being posted at the time or we're not in our weekly posting schedule. Tricion says it doesn't have the controller. He was impressed by the size and temperatures, but he couldn't take full advantage of the thing. He only had a 1080p 60 hertz monitor available at the time. Yeah, well, I guess, seeing the extra resolution and how well it handles the game at that resolution, he probably, yeah, would have likely needed to have at least a higher refreshment panel because at that point, it may look good, it may feel crisp, but with no controller, it's kind of like, what's the point? But at least he's reporting that the temperatures are good because heat and dust are, a component's worst nightmare, even for consoles. Even for consoles. Again, consoles are miniature computers. Q says can't afford the Series X or a proper gaming PC. Spend all my money on gaming laptop for school. I'm going to take the quotations as your laptop is for school, but it's capable of gaming, which all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So again, choices and options. Q. At least you got him, fam. At least you got him. But hopefully some of the previous generation, like the Xbox Series S, more so the Xbox Series S, they really won't lose significance. And gaming, some of these parts are likely to decrease in price, especially when stock normalizes. Tracion says he, but he just played for about 30 minutes because it wasn't his own. He proved it to me by video calling me to show it in his hand. Okay, cool. So at least he was able to do that. So he was able to play it. And are there any price rumors about the 3080 Ti? I haven't seen any price rumors other than mild suggestions. And I'll tell you what my projections would be. I think it'll be slightly less than what the RTX 2080 Ti, because Nvidia seems to want to create this allure that they've offered more performance for less money, but the value still is a little because RTX 2080 Ti's RTX 20 series was had such a high cost. So now Nvidia's lowers the cost on the next generation, and then they're like, well, we're the good guys. We lowered the cost and we gave you more value, or we gave you more, not value, we gave you more performance. But I'm going to project it to be anywhere between $1,000 to $1,100, and it'll still be it'll be a very hard sell because the RTX or the RX 6800 and the 6900 XT the 6900 XT more specifically starts at $1,000. So you would imagine a 3080 Ti would have to be maybe just as faster or slightly fast, and maybe even cost lower money. So I stand corrected, maybe not even 1,000, but somewhere in between there, somewhere between 8 and 9. As you figure add-in board vendors would have to increase the cost to compensate for their manufacturing costs. And RTX only says could be just a rumor to make users second guess the 6900 XT. And I mean, that could be very much true too. There's been a lot of findings and a lot of reports coming out. And the more and more you read it and look into it, you start to see more of a connection. But it could very much be, scare tactics to kind of push the RTX, or to push the RTX 3080 and even the RTX 3070 to people. But it would be nice if those cards are available, and especially available at that price. We talked about this in, I believe, last Monday's vlog, and you can always find our most recent videos down in the description box below. There's a link to the playlist for that. But we talked about that in last week's vlog, and the 6900 XT is $1,000, while the RTX 3070 is a $499 card. So you have that higher end versus the lowest end with Nvidia. But I still think there's a huge gap in between the price point of $200 to $400. So I still think that where the most demand is, and that's low to mid-level graphics cards, will be in the 3060. The 3060, I hate the idea of a 3060 Ti, which tells me it was a failed 3070 Ti, right? I'd rather them put more effort into like a 8 GB 3060, or maybe even a 10 GB 3060, or a 8 GB 3060 and a 10 GB 3060 Ti. But they would have to make the Ti more relevant versus the 3060, because it'll cost more. It'll cost like over that $400 price point, as Nvidia themselves doesn't have anything in their newer series under $500. Right, that whole $400 to $200 market is void. And the same thing with AMD with the RX 6000. There's no 6500 and 6600 and 6700 refresh, and that's something that is worth talking about, because the consoles at their price points with the Xbox. Let's jump back here. I tell you what, let's jump back here, because the consoles with their price points, right? Especially with the PS5, the digital edition is $399, so it's $400, and the Ultimate or Standard Pro edition is $500. And you look at the specs and you compare that to a PC, which we are going to do a quick run through on PC Part Picker to build a PC similar to these specifications. It's important to note that Sony and Microsoft, they get a discount. They get a discount off of these parts by buying them in bulk. So while on the surface of things, it looks like, oh wow, look at that. See, consoles are better because they cost less. Boom, there you go. Argument kill. PCs cost more. To heck with the master race and yada yada yada. All the other rhetoric. But at $499 for the PS5. That's incredible value, especially with the performance. Sony is telling us 4K 60 up to 120 hertz. And the same thing with the Xbox Series S, except the Xbox Series S is also supporting 1440p, 2560 by 1440p 60 hertz on the Xbox Series S. $299. Wow, if I wanted to build a gaming PC at that price point, I likely would even start on the used market. You probably would get more value. And RTX1 says, yeah, it could be a rumor. I agree. I mean, you know how I feel. Rumors are rumors until proven otherwise. So, we have to wait and see what the Giants, what Mean Green wants to do. But RTX1 says consoles. Yuck. I am very reserved about consoles. I was consoles all the way up until maybe the last 5 years, and that's because my PS4, and I had both. I had a PS4 and I had a Xbox One, and of course I had the PS4 for the exclusives. Let me jump back here. I had the PS4s for the exclusives. I had the Xbox for the exclusives. The Game Pass had just came out. It was just picking up steams, and Microsoft was getting well-worthy games worth downloading. And I was tired of frame rate drops. It just stutters. It just the overall sluggishness of the PlayStation 4 and the uh, and the Xbox One. I just couldn't do it anymore, and so I decided to jump back into modern computing. And here we are. But consoles have a purpose. But gaming PCs have character beyond just performance. They are a reflection of you as the user, even if you didn't build your PC. So even if you went with, a builder here, which is awesome. This is a service I offer here locally, here in the tri-state area, computer repair. It's a service that I offer. And it's perfectly fine. It's just that even when gamers go with a pre-built or they go with, a custom vendor or a custom builder, I still recommend them to learn, at least familiarize yourself with the build process from beginning to end, from conceptualizing to to shipping the system completed and running Windows. Familiarize yourself with the process, and then you can fix any problems you run into, and that can save you money. Um, and RTX on says that's an awesome plan. That's an awesome plane inside the lab. Well, thank you. Stepping up the game. Oh, playing. I'm sorry. Yeah, stepping up the game. Yeah, absolutely. All about growth. RTX One is referring to my plans on upgrading the live shows here in terms of both quality, and that's in beyond just hardware. That's also in content as well, and that's just doing more here on our live shows, and just me finding ways to provide more value to some of you who are almost just as much as advanced as I am, and and working with these parts. And there's so many of us in here in the community has a wide range of parts. It's really awesome to for me to be here, and I'm really honored to be here to you know entertain the community with this hobby that we all love, right? We all love this hobby. We wouldn't be here if we didn't, even in its expensive glory. um, Sparta Rules says, like I said last week, I think Nvidia is poop themselves and are has pooped themselves and are going to cut prices on all of their prices to compete with AMD. Yes, maybe they will. Maybe they will. I mean, it still starts with them having to get these graphics cards available to people. They still have to answer the supply and demand issue, which again, Hensing had a very interesting quote to say about that. And you read it yourself, look it up and look at it from your perspective. You tell me how you took it as him saying that, but he more so saying that there isn't a supply issue. This is Jensen. There isn't a supply issue. There's a demand issue. Well, who would have thought gamers would have wanted the absolute best, Mr. Jensen? Who would have known? Who would have known? But it doesn't matter because AMD could be possibly running into the same thing themselves. We're seeing it with the Ryzen 5000, and most likely we're going to see it with the RX 6000 series. And jump back into the chat. Q says, will there be a 3050 Ti? I think so. I think there will be a 3050 Ti. We've seen, 50 Ti variants all the way since what, the 600 series or 500 series. The 1050 Ti is due for a refresh. That was arguably the 1650, but no ray tracing, and I really think Nvidia wants to introduce lower end graphics cards with ray tracing and DLSS 2.0. So I do think that there will be a 3050, a 3050 Ti, and a 3060 priced somewhere between that $200 to $500 price range. You heard it here first, Lab fam. Those will be the graphics cards, and somewhere to like a 6, 8, 12 maybe gigabyte, VRAM configuration, because 4 gigabytes is enough for 1080p gaming, especially for like medium to high settings. In most games, right? 1080p, it's fine, but it's going to come down to the actual speed of the graphics card at that point. But for 1440p, you want at least 60 gigabytes of VRAM. So that's why I said we may see 60 gigabytes being the entry for lower end cards. And Triceon says, don't think so. There'll probably be a 3060 just like the 2060. Yeah, but even though there was a 2060, like you're correct, and we also had the 2060 Super, at the time Nvidia gave us newer, they gave us the Turing variants of those, and we got that in the form of the 1660 Super and the 1660 Ti and the 1650 Super, which I did a review on that channel. And for my friends watching on the replay, I'm going to try to remember to throw a card up to that video here. You can check it down, and you can find that video down in the description box. It's really doing well here on the channel. Some amazing feedback, amazing engagements. Like most recently, a commenter made mention of the cinematic vibe and ambience and feel to it, and which is awesome because that's one of my favorite videos we've produced here on the channel, and that's reviewing the 1650 Super. But I mean, no, the 1650 Super was essentially, I'm sorry, the 1650 Super was essentially a 2050 without ray tracing and all of the other, DLSS and things like that. So that's why I believe that there will be a 3050 and a 3050 Ti, because if AMD is able to, let me switch back here because this is a very interesting point, right? Check this out. Let's switch back here because if AMD is able to offer ray tracing on a $399 console with an RDNA 2 GPU, that tells me that that architecture, these graphics cards are going to comprise of the 6500, so the replacement of the 5500, either the 6500 or the 6600 XT GPU. I really think that the consoles will be based off those GPUs and those SKUs because they're going to offer the same ray tracing all the way up from the 6700 all the way up to the 6950 XT, right? They're going to offer all of the same technologies, AMD's version of ray tracing, which yes, will be on consoles, which is good because I want to see more ray tracing games, right? If you haven't, I know some of my friends in the chat have RTX enabled graphics cards, and if you've experienced ray tracing, share with the community in the chat your experience with ray tracing, because I'm going to tell it like this: from the ray tracing games I've played, it is a tremendous feature to have to turn it on. And with the value that AMD is offering, with similar features, which may or may not be available at launch day, so it's important to note that. But AMD is going to offer these similar technologies at a lower cost. So if they can squeeze that performance in an Xbox Series S with a cut down version of a big Navi GPU, then Nvidia just can't ignore that price segment, right? Even if they did want to kind of stomp on consoles, but you can't ignore just stats. Once you look at the stats and you compare it to, say, like, a PC, yeah, the PC may have a little bit slightly extra cost. Once you factor in things like the case, more specifically, the case could change the direction of the cost of the system. Now, it's good that some of the lower end Ryzen CPUs do come with coolers, so you save money with just going with the stock air cooler, which holds up just fine. You can check out some of the videos we did with the 1600X, and I use the stock air cooler on that CPU for a reason, to make a point, and I still very much prefer AIOs. So I very much still prefer all-in-one liquid coolers. Jumping back over to the chat, sorry. Yeah, Q says maybe a predecessor for the 1650. Yeah, absolutely. I wish I would have saw that 10 minutes ago before I went on what I was saying. But yeah, so a predecessor to the 1650, absolutely. Perhaps with ray tracing and DLSS support. It's too hard to ignore that pricing segment. AMD is introducing graphics cards in that pricing segment, arguably with these RDNA 2 GPUs that are in the consoles. If you take a look at the specs there, right there on the screen while we're running through the chat here, because Chris TQ says, I guess yes, but a long time after the 3060. Well, I guess he's referring to the will there be a 3050 Ti? And yeah, I don't know what order Nvidia will release it in, right? Like, will we get the 3050 Ti first and then the 3060, or vice versa, or maybe at the same time? I really think Nvidia and let me leave the stats up here, but I really think Nvidia and AMD are playing this boxing match game right there, right? But because um, they're not showing they're not showing they're not showing their full hand in these in their announcements, right? AMD left open their they haven't showed their complete hand with their lower end Big Navi 2 GPUs because they're waiting to see what Nvidia is going to do. And now Nvidia kind of has to wait, or they're in a position now to respond back because as it stands, AMD is offering more value on the GPU market. They are doing things, and rather, say what you want about, um, their one clock overclock and rage mode, and even their smart access memory feature, when coupled together with a Ryzen 5000 series chipset, gives you this boost in performance in terms of having more memory bandwidth and taking advantage of the overclock and headroom on your big Navi GPU. So it's awesome to see these technologies come through to these cards. Triceon says, I've only had an Xbox 360, but I still preferred PC to play Minecraft at the time, even at 15 FPS. Hey man, mad respect, right? Hey, now you've evolved your system. I know you have that 3600, that 6-core 12-thread Zen 2 CPU, which is going to be relevant for a very long time still. 3600, which I'm seeing them drop down at $169. I mean, that you still can't beat that. Is it's slightly slower than an 8700K at less than half the price that 8700K cost even at launch. And 8700K prices really haven't come down. I think the lowest I've seen 8700K is like 249 or 299. So that is that to consider. But Chris says, yeah, to sell as many 3060s as they can. And Q says to Chris that yeah, he says, yeah, that makes sense. Right on. Triceon says ray tracing looks amazing and all, but I hate to use it without DLS because it costs a lot of frame rate, which yes it does. That's very important to notice or to note, and I talked about that in the Minecraft RTX explained video we did back. That video is a little seasoned. And I forgot to hit the focus button in that video, but the value is still there, right? We go into full detail on RTX, and the information is still relevant today. If you wanted a more deeper dive into ray tracing and how it works, and I even did a little neat example. I know some of you seen it here because I met some of you on that video. But yeah, I mean it does take a frame rate hit, but Minecraft RTX with ray tracing shaders is amazing to play no matter the FPS. And I am long overdue for doing a video to cover the ray tracing in Minecraft and RTX in Minecraft. That video that I just was mentioning about was supposed to be followed up with RTX Minecraft once the update released, and now it is in beta. And I've kind of walked it through, but I haven't made a dedicated video on it. I also hope that ray tracing RTX in Minecraft will also support AMD's version of ray tracing. So that's important to keep an eye on as well. Tiger Nation says, "Hey Dad, gotta go. Phone's about to die. Stay safe. Love you." Yeah. All right. Be safe up there. Q says, "Who do you think will win the low end market?" That is a really, 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 really good question. And as it remains to be seen now, I really think it'll boil down to which of these two will be able to meet the supply, right, and the demand of gamers. So it's like who said who do you think will win in the lower end market? Q says, well, I I want to say in AMD is on track to maintain a market segment that they've always essentially maintained and Nvidia has struggled in. So once you look at graphics cards, legacy graphics cards like the RX 580 and the RX 3 and the R9 390. You look at legacy graphics cards like that who have stand the test of time, and I did the tear down of the R9 390 video, and that video to this day still gets views and comments engagement as people are still looking to buy a graphics card. And this is a market segment AMD has always done well in, and Nvidia has struggled in. So I think this is an area AMD will be able to retain their position while also still trying to capture the hearts and minds of high-end PC and tech enthusiasts who are looking for higher-end graphics cards. So graphics cards in the in the plus $800 range, right? Which the RX 6800 XT costs six or $579 or six, I think a little over $600, somewhere between there, between the two. The 6800 is I think a little over five, and the 6800 XT is a little over six. But you know, and then you have the $1,000 6950 XT. But there's nothing else in between there, and there's nothing else lower there. So I do think AMD is going to come with these lower end GPUs and yeah, maintain their position on the lower end market, right? Like you mentioned. Hopefully that answered that question. That's a very good question, and we'll likely go into a little more detail as we progress through the live stream. Triceon says, my dream PC used to be an Intel quad core and a GTX 980 Ti back in the day. The 980 Ti is still very much a capable graphics card. And quad cores are still solid for gaming, right? Especially if you can, if you have hyper-threading. But, 7700K may have high utilization, especially at 1080p, but they can definitely still get the job done, you know. But I could dig it. I mean, mine too. Like I jonesed over the 6700K, but they were a little hard to get at the time, so I went with the 7700K. And here we are. I started creating content, and I needed more cores. Q says, who or we answered that. Sorry. Q says, yeah. Who do you think will win the lower end market? And I think AMD is primed to not only win it but to maintain their position. Nvidia has a lot. Nvidia now has to catch up. They have to catch up. They have to even respond with the 6800 XT. And the Mr. Zombify says Nvidia is in bad shape right now. AMD GPUs and console and getting back in the high-end PC game equals win for AMD. It absolutely positively does. That's very, very important to note because you're right. It absolutely, it absolutely does. It puts AMD in this position to like gain more control of more market share as they're starting to take some of Intel's market share. It's going to happen to Mean Green, and you might have heard me in the vlogs and some of the previous live streams, but AMD is fighting this two-front war. Unlike Intel's main competitor is AMD. Yes, Nvidia's main competitor is Radeon, AMD's graphic division. But you look at AMD, who has their graphic division of Radeon, their desktop CPU platform with Ryzen and things like that. And so they have to have a strategy to compete against high-end graphics cards with Nvidia and high-end desktop computing with Intel. And so kudos to AMD because they're really doing it. And I'm all for about price to performance, right? We talk about that here on the channel. We don't fanboy around here. We're all about what has the best value for the money. To this day, I still think a 9900K still has an insane amount of value, and the prices are slightly coming down even more to where if you're like on myself, if you have a Z390 board like an 8700K, consider a side upgrade if you just need like a slightly bump in cores and you game at a higher resolution. We're all about what's good value for money, but you can't argue the upgrade path on the AM4 socket. But but yeah, they are, and Nvidia is in bad shape right now. They got to respond. They're on the ropes. Q says, hope they make more low profile cards. Start still putting together an ITX build. And you're right because I considered that too because I want to go with a 6000 series GPU in my mini ITX build. And I'm like, checking the dimensions out. Like hopefully they'll fit. But more surprisingly, the reference RX 6950 XT is the same size as the 6800, right? So that's just an amazing feat on on AMD's side. But yeah, I do think we will see a a 3060, which is rumored to release in December, January, the 3060 or 3060 Ti, whatever you want to call it, sometime in December, January, because we can't ignore that price range of the between $200 to $400. That is almost the exact price range of the consoles. If you look at their pricing with the Xbox Series X at $499 and the Xbox Series S at $299, and then the PS5 at $499 and the digital edition at $400. So yeah, graphics cards are missing in that price range, in that $200 to $400 price range. They're non-existent. So I do think we will see those graphics cards in that price range from both sides, from both AMD and Nvidia. It's like someone just mentioned here in the chat. AMD is in, I believe it was Mr. Zombified said that AMD is in this position to, with their RDNA 2 GPUs and consoles, and also offering similar, if not similar, slightly more performance than their competitors offering. So that's putting AMD in this really interesting point. I'm like, come on, you gotta admit, even if you are a fanboy, this is very interesting to watch, almost as if it was like athletes performing in like the highest possible stage, say the Super Bowl. Regardless of who you like, you're gonna watch the Super Bowl. But This is an interesting battle between AMD and with their what they are lining the market up with their with their consoles. Because I like the aesthetic of bring it up here. I like the aesthetic of the consoles more so the Xbox Series X. The PS5, not so much, but I'm all for their aesthetics. Like I like them both. I like the blue. I will say I like the blue on the PlayStation 5, but I don't know. I think it would just get too old. It looks like it accumulated a lot of dust. But I do like the LED. It's a nice touch, especially on the controller, which I PC game on the controller. Yes, I'm that person. If it's with the exception of maybe Fortnite and like PUBG when the occasion when I do play. I mean, I normally play on using the Xbox One controller, and this is from the OG Xbox One. This controller has served me well. The console died when during the power outage, but I was able to salvage the controller. Controller works just fine. I have the Microsoft wireless dongle right here. You just plug this in, and you're able to use an Xbox One controller or an Xbox 360 controller. I highly recommend it. You can find these. I bought mine on Amazon. Right, you can find them with the links down in the basement below, but under 20 bucks, and it's just great to switch between because I like to play a lot of single player games. So having the flexibility of a controller to just simplify the game really helps because I'm a dad and I don't have much time, so to jump into a game I have to maximize that time. But I mean, yeah, I more so like the monochromatic look and feel of the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S too. Like I mean, they look fine. There's nothing like picking out your own case. And the problem with consoles is versus PCs. While on the occasion you may come across someone who has the same case as you, but almost willing to bet that that person may not have the same specs or may not have the same configuration. But with the Xbox Series X and the PS5, mine is like limited editions and like your Star Wars edition and your Marvel's Avengers edition and your Spider-Man, Prime edition. And despite custom consoles like that, and even the Call of Duty ones, everybody's system is going to look the same. And it what leads me back to what we like to say around here is that consoles have a purpose, but gaming PCs have character. There's all sorts of you know, other aesthetic changes you can make when building your PC to make it more reflective of your personality or the things you like. We're going to start seeing more and more of these awesome Cyberpunk 2077 builds. I see them on my Instagram from like Asus and MSI. Some of the large manufacturers are starting to share them. But I mean, they look awesome, and that's one of the awesome aspects, one of the pros of being on the being on the PC platform is your ability to choose, how you want your system to look versus on a console. I mean, this is what you get, right? This is what you get. Q says, I hope they make more low profile cars. Yeah, so we already answered that question. I'm sorry. Let me jumping back here and moving right along because contrary to the belief, you can build a game PC similar to a console cost. Let's jump over to our training scene, right? Because here's the thing. You can build a gaming PC similar to a console. Yes, it's going to cost more. Obviously, it's going to cost more. But what you're getting in exchange of that cost in terms of customizing your system and unlocking performance, having a more robust cooling solution, because most consoles have they're relying on passive cooling, and the previous generation, some of them had vapor cooled chambers. So with a PC, you're going to get a better performance because you're getting better temperatures and power draw. Because the hotter these consoles get, they start to throttle. It's true. And if we jump back to
765.
the stats here, the specs, I believe it's these specs. They have a 250 to 300 watt power supply, which that's a low amount of power, so you should expect, good thermals. But these are also cut down parts, so they're really not going to, they're all custom to boost to a certain point and to compensate for heat and all those things. But that's not a bad power draw. Not a bad power draw at all. But I tell you what, let's jump here. And if we were to configure a gaming PC similar to a console, right? I mean, you can't deny the relevancy of like the B400 series chipsets, like a B450 motherboard. And it does have a Zen 2. If you go back, take one last
76.
look at our specs because we're going to do a quick run. We're going to do a quick run and build a PC with similar specs to these consoles. Now the problem is I'm not going to try and touch the Xbox Series S at its $299 price point. That is just incredible value for the money. Um, and we're going to stick to the PS5 more specifically versus trying to go spec for spec with the Xbox Series X. One, because they're so similarly, they're so similarly configured in terms of what's inside of them. Like they both have RDNA 2 GPUs and they both have Zen 2 CPUs. The same exact core configuration, what have you. Um, but we're going to stick with the PS5 more so specifically because the Xbox Series X you can take advantage of exclusives even on a PC. So it's kind of like if you're going to go on a PC versus the next generation console, and you're like, well, I kind of want a little bit of both. I don't have friends that play on the Xbox Series X. I really want to just play Sony exclusives because unfortunately there's no other way to play Sony exclusives, right? I mean, until Sony gives us a launcher, which I'm hoping they will, but until Sony gives us a launcher, there's just no other way to play Sony's exclusives. Some of them, like Horizon Zero Dawn, has come on, has made their way over to the PC. I'm hoping we'll see more in Detroit Become Human, and I'm hoping we'll see more. RTX one says $1,000, same as a 6900 XT. Spider Rules. Okay, Spider Rules says I missed that comment. Spider Rules says, did you watch the Jay's 2 cents video on doing a build equal to a Xbox Series X? It was crazy. I did not miss. I'm sorry, I did miss that. I did not see it, but Jay always does crazy and cool things. Shout out to Jay. I haven't really watched a lot of Jay content here recently. I'm not with as far as watching other creators in my niche. I normally try to stick to like no more than one. I mean, I do follow them all and I'm subscribed to them, but as far as like watching their content, I really limit that to maybe one or two. But I did miss it. But it's pretty much cut and dry. Even as we'll jump over here, and I'll do, I'll walk you through my version of doing a build similar to a gaming PC. But I'm sorry, do a gaming PC similar to a PS5, the cost of the PS5. We're going to go with the $499 variant, right? Although the digital edition costs less, but I mean, with that lack of storage space, you might want to consider spending the extra $100 and going with the $499 or investing in a good external SSD to install some of your more larger file games on that you may not play all the time. But RTX one says $1,000, and that's the same as the 6900 XT. The higher end RX series, but it says the stream lagged at the office. About to head home, catch up in a few. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was confused by that RTX one, but I do appreciate you stepping in and hanging up. I did notice that we did experience a little bit of lag here on the stream, and I do apologize about that. But let's do a quick run, right? And to simplify it, for the sake of simplicity, right? Let's go to our filters, and it has Zen 2 CPU. So we can go down. We can select the family. And I say Zen 2 because Zen 3, the Allure Zen 3 is awesome. But if you want to build now, then what do? That infamous R5 3600. You don't need to go with the X series unless you are interested in overclocking. And since we do need to match the 8 cores that the consoles are coming with, I would argue against that and saying save $100 and going with the 6 core 12 threads, because if you're just gaming, the 2 extra cores will help, but the 3600 is arguably fast enough to has fast enough single core performance in IPC to deliver a solid gaming experience. The two extra cores will help, but it's going to drive the price up of our build significantly. So you could get away with the R5 3600 even if you did plan on streaming. I know Tricion, the user who were rapping with us earlier, I know he uses the R5 3600, and it's a well capable CPU. We're going to go with the 3600. So yes, we are 2 cores, 4 threads less than the 8 core, in the that are in the consoles, but the 3600 has arguably just as good as IPC and single thread performance and a faster frequency. On top of that, you can achieve higher auto overclocks so long as you have good cooling. So you can even exceed or match the console's frequency, which I believe is 3.5 and 3.8 gigahertz respectively. But we have our CPU. Jumping over to our motherboard. I'm gonna go with the B450 chipset, which I see is already filtered for us, because the B450 motherboards have increased or improved and say their memory compatibility with some of the Agisa the BIOS updates. I mean, sorry, here we go. I can't talk during this live stream, but I'm gonna go with a B450 motherboard. I know MSIs receive a lot of flack, but I tell you what, with with the MSI's Tomahawk series. If you're going to go with a MSI board, at least go with the Tomahawk series, because you get better VRMs, better overclocking results, even if you're not even doing any manual overclocking. But we're going to go to B450 motherboard. We have our Ryzen 3600, Ryzen 5 3600. We're at 314. So again, we're already past the cost of an Xbox Series S. This is why I said it's hard to match a a system at that price point, because again you would want a dedicated graphics card. You really do. But we won't need a CPU cooler because the Ryzen 5 3600 comes with a CPU cooler. We can add more memory than a console, which normally splits their memory between the graphics card, the GPU, right? But we're going to go at 16 gigabytes of dedicated RAM. So it's pretty much standard storage. See, these consoles have 1 terabyte, although you don't have full access to them, and they have NVMe's M.2. So that's what we're going to go with this build. We're going to go with a Western Digital. I will go with the Western Digital, but that's only 500 gigabytes. Excuse me. There we go. 1 terabyte Western Digital NVMe M.2 video card. And now here's what's going to get tricky, because there are no RX 6000 series that are priced low enough to match the consoles. Although the consoles have cut down versions, I'd imagine, of these graphics cards, say the 6500, the 6600, and the 6700 Ti. But that's assuming that they are offering, these graphics cards at that $200 to $400 price point. We could start with, say, an RTX 2060. It's what I would start with, somewhere between, and you can find them for slightly lower than this variant, $341. About $300 is a good price point for them. And that way you'll still get features like DLSS and ray tracing as you would in, say, the 6500 and the same cut down version that we're finding in the consoles. So I would go with an RTX 2060, which this one's priced, where'd it go? This one's priced a little high for my liking, but we'll go with it. All right, we'll go with it. Power supply unit, we're going to match that 350 watts because with our build, I imagine we're probably not even over the the 400 watt mark, but we could go with a 450 watt power supply. This is rated 80 bronze, so we should get a decent amount of available wattage from the power supply at high draws. And what does that put us at? $866. Wow. So, and here's the problem with the one of the cons to PC gaming is yes, it does cost more, but looking at, and we haven't even added a case, but making the mention that again, Sony and Microsoft receive, they get a discount when they buy these items in bulk. So they save some money when doing so. And we as consumers, we're not buying them in bulk. We know we're buying them as consumers at their MSRPs or higher. So that the building a gaming PC versus, and here we are, it's estimated wattage. Look at that, 319 watts. I said under 400, but building a gaming PC does cost more. And so far, we're like $300 more. You'd say $400 more than Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. But if we look at say our GPU, RTX 2060, 6 GB, the graphics card can handle 1440p, right? Absolutely, with that 6 GB VRAM, and you still get DLSS and ray tracing. So, like Tricion mentioned earlier in the stream, he uses ray tracing coupled with DLSS, which I know DLSS isn't popular in the community. It does need some work, and it's come a very long way, even from my testing with it, because I test with it at 4K, and maybe it's just really blurry at 1080p. I'm not really sure, but at 4K, it's really hard to notice. It's like debatable. But with an RTX 2060, you get that luxury of being able to get that 15 upward of 25% performance boost when enabling DLSS. And this is just pretty much a substitute for, the lower end RX 6000 series cards we may see. Again, I would really like to imagine either a 6700 XT or a 6600 XT or a 6500 XT, which the last two would cost a little less than this. But once you add in your case, which would put you about at $900, you're about $400 over the cost of a console. Now, does that mean the the console is inferior because it costs less? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And that is the conundrum we find ourselves with these upcoming consoles. Is that let's jump back to the specs and looking at the specs and the fact that AMD or Sony is telling us we can expect 4K Microsoft, I'm sorry, 4K 60 FPS at on a $500 console. And then with the Xbox Series S, 1440p 60 FPS. $299. That's both those two consoles is the equivalent of this PC we just ran through and built really fast, which would offer a solid performance even at 1440p. Which you should factor in the cost of your monitor, which is system budget. We talked about that on some of the live streams. And is factoring in the cost of your monitor. Even if you have a monitor, maybe you want to upgrade from 1080p because again, 1440p has become the norm. But let me jump back here and bring up our hot build really fast. Let me jump back over to the chat. Because Spider Rule says, I'm going to have to disagree with you on the graphics card choice. The power of the Series X is equivalent to a 2080, what it's offering. And, you're absolutely right. But the problem is with the 2080 is it's still, I mean, even it's still slightly high in cost. And we really haven't seen the price drop in the 20 series cars that I think most of us was hoping for, myself included, just to make them, more competitive more available for gamers. But the 2070 Super, which is on the heels of an RTX 2080, still is this one $899, but again, the pricing with GPUs are all over the place. But this 2070 Super, $759, and at that point, one should arguably, if you're going to go over the $500 price range in a graphics card, maybe you should consider waiting for availability to normalize with the with the R if the RX 6000 runs into the same problem, then maybe it is best to wait for stock to normalize. But if you're in the sub $400 category for a graphics card, it's like what else would what else do you go with? Um, there you don't have a lot of choices in that price range. And I skipped over say the 1660 Ti and the 1660 Super, and even the 1660, which is graphics cards I recommended last week's live stream, and because of their price point and the fact that these cards too can run 1440p, but I more so went with the RTX 2060 in this hot choice, or in our build, because of because of ray tracing and DLSS, so we could take advantage of DLSS, but it does push the cost up, a great deal, to where you can save almost $200 by just going with, if you didn't want, like, let's say if you didn't care for ray tracing in DLSS right now, right? Because without the GPU, we're at 524. You can almost get away with the 4000 series Ryzen APU at that point, if you didn't want to go even, or if you didn't want to go with a dedicated video card. But if you didn't care for ray tracing and DLSS, then you should consider looking at the 1660 Ti or 1650 Super, depending on your style of play and the games you play. Part of the rule says, yeah, the power of the Series X is equivalent to 2080, and what it's offering. It says true, and so yeah, I would like to see AMD. I mean, if you think about it, Nvidia killed the 2080. Arguably did it with the 2070 Super, but they killed the 2080. I paid $849 for my RTX 2080. And my for the 2080 Ti, the EVGA 2080 Ti, it was 1400. It's EVGA for the win, 3. But you know, Nvidia arguably already killed the 2080 with the Super Series by releasing a graphics card the same amount of VRAM, slightly more CUDA cores, slightly faster, with more tensor cores and ray tracing, features and what have you. But you know, the 1660 Super, even at $400, I would say, yeah, if you're going to look at the 1660 Super, consider the 5700 XT. They cost about the same. They cost about the same. But yeah, so that's why I went with the RTX 2060 in that build. But it's all good. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about about this community. It's about sharing our ideas and and coming together. But this is our hot build, and as you can see, well, we got to add a graphics card, right? Let me go back. I'm not going to add a case because you can just add about another $50 to $60 per case. Case is so dependent on your personality, but and obviously airflow and how much what your ambient room temperatures may look like. But yeah, consider a 5700 XT at that $400 price point. And I stayed away from the 2060 Super because it's just really not enough value for what you're going to pay. I mean, an RTX 3070 is faster than a 2060 Super, and it's only going to be about what, $100 more. So I really wanted to see more VRAM in a 3070, but I digress. Right? Speaking of Jay's 2 cents, but I can't find it now. But I'm looking for the excuse me. I'm looking for the 60. Let's add the six. Let's go with the 1660 Super. At least it's a Super variant. But if you didn't care for ray tracing and all those things, you can save almost $100 and put that money into, say, your monitor, and upgrade when stock normalizes between the 3070 and the RX 6000 series. Because the 1660 Super is a graphics card, it'll still hold its value, it'll still hold its weight. That six gigabyte VRAM buffer, and it is a fast graphics card, even at 1080p. Great pair with, say, like a 3600, or a 20, even a 2600X. Got to keep a lookout for that Zen Plus value as soon as those prices come down. But yeah, this is our skinny build. $784. So about $300 more than a console. One of the cons to building a PC is that yes, it costs more than a console. Yes, that is so true. Yes, it costs more than a console. But you can do so much more with your PC. Your PC can make you money. You can, if you're interested, you can create content. If you're not interested in creating content, maybe you're a student. Maybe, you just want to use your PC as an overall entertainment device, and so you want to stream and watch your movies from. I mean, you can do all those things from a console too, but with the PC, you just have more control of the performance of the system coupled with the aesthetics of the PC. Because what it really boils down to here, let me jump back here. What it really boils down to, in my opinion, is the style of games you play and the type of monitor you have. Because, like we mentioned in the beginning of this live stream, 1440p or 2560 by 1440p is becoming the resolution of the future for gamers. Monitor resolutions are important because clearly it's how well a monitor can display the visual content. And when you're talking about games, even if you're talking about content creation, the significance of having a sharp resolution is important, especially when you're talking about packing more, pixels per inch on your monitor, and talking about different monitor sizes and refresh rates. That is what it really boils down to. Okay, and to jump or to segue into monitors, because we talked about monitors. We talked about VN monitors and VA monitors and TN monitors and IPS and what are some good monitors and some things you should look for in a monitor. We talked about that in last week's live stream. If you're here on the replay, I'll try to remember to leave a card up to that video so you can give that replay a watch. Again, our live streams are lengthy, but I try to keep them at a respectable time. I just love it. I just love, and enjoy talking to the community in this format. But, with 1440p being the potential future of gamers, consider a well rated, 1440p monitor, one that you can partner with your system that's going to drive home a solid gaming experience. For example, this monitor, which I continue to recommend, it's one I plan on getting myself, the Gigabyte G27Q, which is an IPS monitor, and also has a 144 hertz refresh rate. So it's like not only are you getting those extra pixels, which 1440p has 4 times the pixels as the standard HD variant. So not only are you getting those extra pixels and better pixels density, but you're also getting low response time and a high refresh rate. So this would be a perfect, monitor to partner with, say, either an Xbox Series S or X, especially the Xbox Series S. Although Microsoft said 60 hertz, consider consider this monitor with an X, and even at that point, between a console and this monitor, you're under $900. So you're still under even the cost of the system we built just a second ago over in PC Part Picker, which was $784 with no ray tracing and what have you, just a 1660 Super. And so with that monitor, it would put us a little over $1,000. But with this, if you went with the Xbox Series X and this monitor, you'd be about at $800 plus tax in your general area, but you'd be at about $800. But this monitor would be partnered well with the Microsoft Xbox Series X. Do note that the PlayStation 5 will not support 1440p, just 4K. So at first there were rumors that came out that they were, but then Sony can't talk. Sony clarified and said nope, no support for 1440p, just 4K and 1080p. And so, why 1080p over 1440p? There's nothing wrong with 1080p. 1080p is very much still the day's standard. It is still, one of the most well used resolutions to this date. We had checked in on Steam's chart where they report on different configurations, and 1080p was leading the race still. But 1440p could be slowly adopted, but you're getting more pixels essentially, and the more pixels, the sharper your image, right? But 1440p is about 2 times smoother than 1080p, and also has 3.6 million more pixels precisely, as 1080p has about 2 million, a little over 2 million pixels. So 1440p has 3.6 million pixels. And so in terms of what does that correlate to in terms of pixels per inch? Well, for a 27-inch 1080p monitor, or let's say a 27-inch 1440p monitor, like this gigabyte monitor here, like the 27Q, you're going to get about 108 pixels per inch. So that means more pixel density in each little square, right, that your monitor used to render the image. So you're getting more pixel density in each block. So sharper picture image, right? Sharper clarity. And with a 27-inch 1080p monitor, you're getting about 81 pixels per inch. So that difference is noticeable, and you could tell a significant difference. Like I game, let me switch back here. I game on a ultra wide, so a 21 by 9 3440 by 1440p monitor. And I absolutely love this resolution. Like absolutely love this resolution. And I play single player games, so the extra real estate helps, bring the world to life in terms of visuals and just overall immersiveness. And I'm glad, and while previous generation Xbox could support 1440p, it's really good to see that these consoles are getting hardware that could very much complement monitors such as some of the ones that we've talked about in previous live streams. And I kind of just went and grabbed, some of the ones that are the most popular even today, similar to even this Asus display, which too is an IPS 144 hertz monitor. And it's under $300. So this is why I say that this resolution could become more and more accepted, more and more, widespread or more commonly used, and that way, it's like the next level of graphics for games. And I can't recommend it enough. You will notice a difference, right? Like you will notice a difference. And for both consoles, even for this system we built here, we could run 4K. Would have to lower some of the settings, right? To because it only has 6 gigabytes of VRAM, and the higher the textures resolution, the more VRAM you're going to take up to. But I mean, even for 4K, even if you were ready to dip your hands in and play at 4K, I use this monitor. We did a video on it. If you're interested on how it looks, the specifications, what have you, you can find that video down in the description box below, aka the basement. But even if you wanted to go with a 4K monitor with the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5, you're looking at under $1,000. This system that we built here too could power that 4K monitor with moderate settings, right? Could power this monitor with moderate settings, and we would still be a little over $1,000. But your monitor is arguably one of your most important components you can invest in and learn about. And then 1080p, you standard, if you just were looking for standard 1080p, you can go with the 75 hertz BenQ monitor. BenQ makes some really, really, really good monitors. They're not the most visually pleasing in terms of aesthetics, but for the cost, for example, this BenQ monitor, this 24-inch BenQ monitor, is only $120. And 24 inches is, some would say, is the sweet spot for gaming, because the higher the resolution, the higher the monitor size, the the more the more significance your pixel counts matter, because you're stretching your pixels across a larger screen. So a 24-inch screen is going to have a better pixel density than, say, like a 27-inch monitor or even a 32-inch monitor. So all these monitors you can give a look at. They are down in the description below. If you are interested in upgrading your monitor from, say, like a 1080p monitor, or you are looking to get, like someone mentioned earlier in the stream, that they are waiting for the Xbox Series X to come in the mail. So if you too were able to snag an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 Pro, maybe you want to say, you know what, I've been playing on 1080p for all this while, and now I have a console that can drive this resolution, that can drive 4K up to 120 hertz and 4K 60 FPS. And this is why this Asus TUF monitor would be perfect. And it's an IPS monitor, so you're going to get slightly lower response time. I'm thinking somewhere between 4 milliseconds. Let me see if it tells us. Well, again, I've tested this monitor. I did a video on it. You can find it down in the description box below. If you navigate over to our most recent playlist, I encourage you to do it after this live stream, though, because we're just getting fired up. Because gaming, gaming is about the experience, right? We play games for the experience, whether that's multiplayer or single player game. Gaming is about the experience, and I say, you know, building a gaming PC is all about or determines building a gaming PC. The biggest determining factor is how much you are willing to invest in that experience. But this 4K gaming monitor at $400 isn't bad. It is a little pricey, but it would still put you at under $1,000, coupled with your Xbox Series X or your PlayStation 5 Deluxe Edition, and this gaming PC we built here, which you would have better upgrade options. Which we're going to talk about that here in the lower part end of this live stream. But you would have a better upgrade path with building a PC. So it's like high investment at first, but this is going to pay off long term. Is one of the pros to building a gaming PC. But you know, you could game on a 4K 120 hertz TV, especially with with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X having support for HDMI 2.1. So the extra details, they're well worth it. And the significance of HDMI 2.1 is we mentioned this earlier in live stream, but then that enables the signal to be sent from the monitor, from your 4K monitor in your console or your PC through HDMI at 120 hertz or even 8K 60 hertz. So that's just amazing. I can't even touch enough on 8K because it's just not enough. It's just not mainstream enough. Well, but we'll see. A whole bunch of interesting tech coming out in the future. And again, shameless plug, but if you haven't yet, I'm telling you, give this stream a like if you just joined us. If you just joined us, give this stream a like. Tell me where you're watching from. If you're not a subscriber yet, I welcome you to subscribe. So much new content coming up here in the future with all this new tech coming out, like PCs and consoles, and Nvidia's response to the RX 6000 and the RX 6000 series itself, and then Ryzen 5000. And you know where my heart's at, and that's the used market. Because deep down inside, we're used PC tech enthusiasts. We welcome all techs here, right? Or tech here, all builds, all systems from all different kinds of backgrounds. But much love for the used PC market. So definitely be sure to give this video a like. Definitely be sure to subscribe if you're not already. But that with a high refresh rate and 1440p monitors, it just creates this experience of smooth. The refresh rate creates this experience that feels both smooth and creates responsive in-game movements. This is especially important if you're playing multiplayer games or if you're playing games with, a lot of, uh, a lot of movement, a lot of action. Just that it's a other kind of feeling, and it remains to be seen if the PS5 and the Xbox Series X will be able to, capture that experience in the way that we're seeing or the way it's laid out on paper anyway, in terms of their specifications and what's going to be inside of them. Which let's jump back here to our to the specifications, not just for the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series, but for both of them. Because you know if you're looking at these specs and you're trying to decide on what's the right or what's the best resolution for you, if you've weighed the pros and cons of gaming on a console and you know decided on the pros and cons of gaming on a PC, whatever your budget has allotted you or afforded you to do, whatever direction you wanted to go in, because again, both these platforms have their pros and cons. And we're going to round them both out here in a second, but on the subject of resolution and matching a capable monitor with these systems, even the PS5 and Xbox Series X, deciding on what resolution is right for you depends on your style of play and the type of games you play. If you play competitively, you should want to consider a 1080p monitor, a high refresh rate 1080p monitor with low response time. All right, like an IPS monitor or a high-end VA panel. You can find some of those monitors down in the description box below if you're interested in making that leap competitively and you want to get into the competitive scene, which is always thriving, right? And always, it's always thriving and it's always evolving, even here with the current, global landscape of things. But if you're a casual player like myself, if you're a casual player and you prefer single player games, then a 1440p 120 hertz, especially 120 hertz, kind of hard to find them new, but looking at some of the, even if we look at some of the ones we picked out here, because you can find, you can get a 1440p monitor for about under $300, much like this Gigabyte 27Q or this Asus PA 278QV. You gotta love computer names, right? But um, if you play casual games or you prefer single player games, then a 1440p monitor could be for you. It provide a rich and immersive experience with those extra pixels, so more detail, right? And the refresh rate that you'll get is just uh, depending on direction. If you're at 120, 144 hertz, will complement the game you play. And a lot of single player games don't necessarily depend on high refresh rates either. That's often left to gamers on the competitive scene who need to take advantage of being able to refresh, to refresh the visuals of the game as fast as possible. And that way they can see their enemies before the enemies see them, or be able to react and respond faster than their opponent. So it is, it is an advantage PC gamers could, or and maybe console gamers will kind of narrow this gap with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. It remains to be seen. Really remains to be seen. But either of these resolutions here, whether that be 1440p, even if you go with 4K, either one of them would serve your creative and gaming needs. Either one, right? Like either one. So yeah, and if you're just joining us, tell me where you're watching from. Tell me, are you impressed with the Xbox Series X? Are you impressed with the Xbox Series S? Or are you impressed with the PlayStation 5, right? Or more so, are you impressed with what you can build with on the PC side, even if it does cost a little more? The extra cost is well worth it. What's important to keep in mind is that it goes back to our mantra here on the channel and here in our community. And that's consoles have their purpose, but PCs have character. The former provides more now than ever competent hardware with actual value in terms of both CPU, horsepower and GPU horsepower in terms of new technologies with RDNA2 architecture, right? So that's AMD's version of DLSS and AMD's version of ray tracing. The latter, right, building a gaming PC, is everything a console aspires to be and more. But that does come with a cost. Much like if we jump back here and look at the system we built, because yes, that will come with an extra cost, more than a console, but it's worth the long-term investment, and it's worth the investment in your experience as a gamer. But the cost of your system, right, could also be dependent on your individual needs. Maybe you don't need an $800 computer. Maybe you play games casually. Maybe you do play games at 1440p, but you don't need max settings graphics or higher ultra settings graphics. Maybe you want to run your graphics at a moderate settings, so to maximize refresh rate and latency. But that all depends on how much you are willing to invest in your experience. Because this $800 PC that we built here will play the same games that a $500 gaming PC could, a $500 gaming build could. Will it, be the same in terms of visual fidelity and, refresh rate, frame rate? I'm sorry, maybe not. But you can't ignore again the upgrade path that PCs offer. But just as your interest evolves, so can your PC. Just talking about that upgrade path. That makes it quite possible in both the new market and the secondhand market. Like both, it's important for both to be able to do that, to be able to upgrade and to dive in and take a look at, parts on both the used market and the PC market. But it's good to have options, right? It's good to have it's good to have options. Almost couldn't talk. It's good to have options. And in today's landscape, in today's tech landscape, to enjoy modern gaming, you have options plenty in all sorts of varieties, right? You have you have options on the lower end, options on the higher end. If you don't want a gaming PC, you now have the option to have a competent console offering with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and X. I recommend looking at subscription based models and also let that determine what platform you want to play on because some PS5 games are, over $60 and while you can save money with Steam deals and subscription models over on PC, it just helps, lower the cushion of blow of having to pay extra for that performance when building a PC versus building a gaming or versus building a PC versus buying a console, right? As opposed to buying a Xbox Series X or a Microsoft Xbox or an Xbox Series X or X and a PS5. Gosh, couldn't talk, but yeah. So again, tell me in the chat if you just joined in. Tell me in the chat. Are you impressed with the specs of the PS5 or Xbox Series X? What would you do? Would you buy a console or would you build a PC? Even if you went with a vendor and they built it for you, right? Would you pay to have your PC built? Imagine so. Imagine so. It's what I recommend to get the most out of gaming. To get the most out of gaming. Having unlocked performance in your parts is really crucial to maximizing and squeezing out every little bit of performance you can. And while, consoles offering of being able to just plug and play and just be able to go is great, but, for those of you who like to tinker and, make marginal improvements and increase your experience in small bursts, maybe you don't have as much disposable income. Maybe you save up money at a few $100s a month and you say, you know what, in 2 months I want to play X game. If you've been saving up, hey, look, if you've been saving up to play Cyberpunk 2077, you probably have a few $100 saved up because they keep delaying the game. So if you just kept saying, I'm just going to keep saving up $200 a month so I can, upgrade my graphics card and get a capable GPU, well, 3 months you can save some at least $600, maybe even a little more if you just pinch and pinch and pinch and make a couple sacrifices so you can, you know, invest in your experience as a gamer or as a content creator because when it comes down to creating content, that's something you generally can't do on a on a PlayStation or Xbox. Yeah, you have console streamers, but when it comes to, getting your feet wet with creating content and encoding video or working with pictures or let's say you're a game developer, right? I developed games early on from about 2009 to here to round out the last couple of years. I would say about 2015, 2018. And let's say you want to work in, rendering 3D environments and rendering 3D graphics. Maybe you just don't play games. Maybe you want to play and learn how to make them, and you want a capable system to know how to do that. When I'm on the comment threads of some of the larger channels I like to follow, like TubeBuddy, which if you are a creator and you're interested in the number one browser extension, a number one browser tool to manage your YouTube channel, consider giving TubeBuddy a look. They are sponsors of this channel, and I am a TubeBuddy affiliate, so you can sign up with the link in the description, and it's totally free. Although they do have paid options, it's totally free to use, and it's really helpful in helping you, grow your YouTube channel and be a better content creator. But that's just one thing you can't really do on a console. So if you're buying your PC because you're also a student, like I know we have Q that was or may still be here in the chat. Q is a student moving to Germany in the process of making their build. So you'd imagine you'd imagine Q's system isn't going to be just a gaming machine. It's also going to be, his system to help him with his schoolwork and his education, his academics or their academics. Walter G. Walter G is good to see you. What's up, fam? Walter G says, just built a new gaming system and used the X570 and Ryzen 7 3800X, but had to go with an AMD RX 5500 XT I got for $150. Skirt. Well, I tell you what, It's actually a really good price, man. 150 5500 XT. Believe it or not, 5500 XT could run 1440p, maybe low settings, but it definitely can run 1440p. I got it for $150. It was really great. We'll upgrade the GPU soon for the new AMD GPU. And yes, Walter, see, so that's what I'm talking about. And that's kind of what goes back to what I was just mentioning a few minutes ago. And that is, you can go with the GPU if what go with what's available now and upgrade down the road, because even if you wanted to make some of your money back with that 5500 XT, if you didn't want to repurpose it, you can, drop it on the used market for about $20, $30 less and make some of your money back to put towards that upgrade. And like you said, into jumping into one of the newer AMD GPUs. Absolutely. That's one of the things we recommended on last week's live stream. Walter, you must have been there. I don't remember you coming out in the live chat. Maybe you were just hanging back in the scene. But yeah, that's an excellent plan, and it's it's what I recommend, especially with given the availability nightmare that we're running into with these graphics cards. But thanks for sharing that, Walter G. I definitely appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. And again, if you were here on the live stream and you missed out on the topics, please jump in, share your input. Let us know what you think of these new consoles and what would you do? Would you rather build a system like Walter G just built a high-end system with on the X570 chipset and the Ryzen 7 3800X. So Walter is also going to be able to take advantage of PCIe 4.0, which is really dope, right? Which I mean, hey Walter, are you going to also possibly upgrade to a Ryzen 5000 series, maybe 6, 7 months? Or the 3800X definitely is going to hold its own for a very long time. But are you like me? Are you interested in using Rage mode and smart access memory? You have the right chipset. You'll just need a Zen 3 CPU. But the 3800X is definitely going to hold up for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why I want to couple my gaming PC with an RX 6000 series GPU and RX 5000 series GPU, and to run a plethora of tests for the community, right? And again, I hate the shameless plug, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hopefully during this live stream I've provided enough value that I would have earned your subscription, that you give this video a like. It really helps us, get the content out and, get on top of that YouTube algorithm. But I mean, it's just an awesome community here. I welcome you to subscribe and join if you haven't. And on top of that, be sure to give the live stream a like. And if you're here on the replay and you made it this far, tell us down in the comment section, what do you think? What would you use? Or what would you go with? PS5 or Xbox Series X/S for 1440p 60 hertz gaming, or 4K 60 hertz, or 4K 120 hertz gaming? Wow, we are in exciting times. We are in exciting times. Since Walter says, yeah, I plan to upgrade in the future. That is why I went with the X570 chipset. Like I got to do my favorite meme. You guys seen? It's the guy he's like, yeah. I know it seems a little bit redundant because it's such a smart move to go with. That's a perfect upgrade plan that you've positioned yourself on, on the Xbox 70 chipset. Yeah, see, Walter says I plan to upgrade in the future. That's what it's all about. Walter says I would go with the Xbox console. Is that for the exclusives? Because keep in mind, you can get all the exclusives on the Xbox Game Pass on your PC, or is that so you can stay connected to some of your mates and some of your friends, on the Xbox platform who's not quite ready to make the leap to PC? Which invite some of those guys and girls. I mean, we want to try to, especially with more than ever, with there being so many options and ways to get into PC gaming. We would want to get more of them exposed to the notion that no, it's not super expensive to build a capable gaming PC. That might have been the case 10 years ago, 7 years ago, but not now. You have options in the Ryzen 4000. The APU series we talked about that a little bit more last Saturday's live stream, but they are a force to be reckoned with, and they too have their place. They do the 4000 series APUs are well fine on that 7 nanometer. But awesome stuff, Walter. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing, because yeah, we talked about this. You have options in today's tech scene, choices to decide on what is going to be right for your play style. right? What's going to be right for your playstyle? And we laid out some of. We talked about the PS5. We talked about the Xbox Series X. We talked about the pros and cons, a little bit of all three platforms: Sony's platform, Microsoft's platform, and the PC platform, right? We talked about it. We talked about the pros of the PS5. Talked about the pros of the Xbox Series S and the Series X. One of them being, what you're getting in those custom boxes is, well, what you're getting. No upgrade path outside of storage. All right, let's just jump back here to our specifications. But, no upgrade path. So you'd be stuck on a Zen 2 CPU, which is fine. Again, okay, that's a 3000 series CPU. Much like what Walter's telling us, they have a Zen 2 CPU with their 3800X, which is a 8-core 16-thread CPU, a mighty fine CPU. I've talked about this too, and I find myself ready for a CPU upgrade for my editing station or my editing rig. And if you weren't present on those live streams, I kind of alluded to the fact that I will go with a sideways side grade of upgrading to a 9900K. So upgrading from my 8700K, a 6-core 12-thread CPU, to a 9900K, slightly better IPC, but those 2 cores, extra 4 threads is going to help in my Adobe Premiere workflow, or just my entire Adobe Suite workflow. But I don't need anything outside of 8 cores right now. The 5950X and the 5900, those are alluring CPUs, but for my workflow, until we bump up to 4K, until we bump the production level up to 4K, the 9900K would suit my needs well, and they're dropping in prices. We talked about that earlier in the live stream. Also, I game at a higher resolution, so it's important to note that when you're gaming at high resolution, your CPU isn't as much as a factor as the GPU is. It's not as balanced as it is at 1080p. At 1440p, the GPU is more of the bottleneck, which is what you want. The CPU is still going to have to complete tasks that the GPU can't, because the GPU is only responsible for rendering graphics. So the CPU is still going to have to, calculate geometry and AI patterns, and very much still the textures on the models. So the CPU is still very much a factor. Walter G says you have more flexibility on the gaming PC, and it's great to go back to playing games on the PC. That is true too. Backwards compatibility, something we didn't touch on, and so thanks for bringing that up, Walter, because backwards compatibility is big, which I believe the Xbox Series S and X will support previous generation games all the way up to the Xbox 360. And you can see, yeah, so backwards compatibility plays all Xbox One games, supports all Xbox 360, OG Xbox games, and Xbox Series exclusive. That's pretty dope. So you get good backwards compatibility, but the fidelity is, will it upscale the graphics of those older games? And then the same thing with the Xbox Series S. All Xbox One games, 360 games, OG Xbox games, next gen support, which is interesting. Whatever that correlates to versus Xbox Series X exclusives tells me that you'll need the more beefier version to play Series X exclusive. So that's interesting. That's also something to keep in mind. So there could possibly be some limitations, but still PCIe 4.0. So again, taking advantage of that Zen 2 microarchitecture and the AM4 socket, although it's a custom variant, most likely like a 400 series, similar to a 400 series variant socket. But I mean, you do have more flexibility on a gaming PC. It's one of the things I recommend it, and you just have this more robust upgrade path. But the Xbox Series X will make for a great home entertainment system. Like, shout out to that 4K Ultra Blu-ray disc. I mean, tell me down in the comment sections if you're watching on the replay, do you still watch physical 4K media, right? Do you still buy and watch, use Blu-ray discs, or do you stream most of your media like what's becoming the norm, right? But it's good that it has it. But the Series S, no disk drive. So that $300 is a cutback, a huge cut down version of the Series X. So something to consider if you're willing to take that hit. But all right, now I think that the ride is slowly coming to an end. I do appreciate everyone who's came out and hung out with us here on this Saturday live stream. I want to give a shout out to here recently. Most importantly, Walter G. Uh, Merp, who came with some really interesting dialogue. But I mean, shout out to Merp. Sparta Rules 1993. RTX On was in the house. The Mr. Zombified, Tricion, Q, Tiger Nation, Chris was in the house. Let's see, make sure we ain't forgetting nobody else. Bad Habit was in the house. I had my guy Mr. Cheek stop by and come through. Thunder was here. We could, a lot of people came out, and I do appreciate you guys and girls coming out and hanging out with me during this live show. If you've made it this far, we go live every Saturday between 12 to 1 o'clock, Eastern Standard Time. I know going live might have been the timing was a little off, especially given with the breaking news that has just aired across the airwaves. So, but hopefully we're able to move on and heal as a society, as a country, and just overall as people. Just overall as people, right? It's like be kind, spread positivity. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out. I really do. Thanks for hanging out during this YouTube live stream. I hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
I could be learning, you could be yearning to see what's behind these closed doors. But I promise you,
The Mr. Zombified. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Like I said, thanks and same to you, fam. Same to you. And shout out to our moderator and my wife, Kimberly. Always got to look out for our moderators. Keeping the community safe, everybody. And making sure the show goes off without a hook. Who else we got? If you're still in the chat, let us know. Let us know.
I could be learning, you could be yearning to see what's behind these closed doors. But I
If I didn't get around to your questions, also let me know in the chat. We keep the chat open just for a little bit of post-show fun. So, if I missed your question, definitely feel free to ask me down in the chat. But I do appreciate everybody tuning in. If I didn't get around to your questions, also let me know in the chat. We keep the chat open just for a little bit of post.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
you'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.